Today is a sweet victory for real women and common sense.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
The Supreme Court ruled that biology matters. Blokes cannot be women. Only biological women are legally women under the 2010 Equality Act. It's official. The war has been won. So let's take a moment to remember the people who lost this war.
A woman can have a penis.
Nick, I don't think we can conduct this debate with,
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just...
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has been a serial offender.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right.
Oh, it's not right, is it? In June 2021, March 2022, June 2022, December 2022 and April 2023, Keir Starmer has either said a woman can have a penis, trans women are women, or supported self-identification. He did finally come to his senses, barely, later in 2023 and said that a woman is an adult human female. But then here comes our Chancellor.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Look, is it transphobic? Look.
And here's the Foreign Secretary.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix, David?
I don't know if it's transphobic, but it's not accurate, Nick. I mean, obviously, it's probably the case that only that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures.
Oh, well, I suppose that is the kind of thinking that you get from this guy.
Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI.
Here's the current leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
The vast majority of people will have the same gender as their biological sex, but a small number won't.
So a woman can have a penis?
Well, quite clearly.
Clearly. Well, I'm not sure who you're hanging around with, Sir Ed, but anyway. Here's Nicola Sturgeon, who, of course, has always been very pro-LGBT, dropping a clanger on male rapists being in female prisons because they just identify as a woman now.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
Let's spare a thought for David Tennant, who was accused of wishing death upon Tory leader Kemi Badenoch for daring to stand up for women's rights.
It is human decency. We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
Horrible bloke. The Harry Potter cast, who would be stacking shelves in Lidl if it wasn't for the brilliance of J.K. Rowling's pen, but seemingly under pressure from their lovey mates, completely sold her out, didn't they? Let's spare a thought for the Daily Mirror newspaper, who yesterday described a bearded, purple-haired man who smeared faeces on a nursery school as a woman, and our friends at Sky News, who described Dylan Mulvaney as a she. This Dylan Mulvaney.
Day 1 of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times. Day 3 of being a girl, and I've already become a bimbo.
Women can have bulges, and that's okay.
Yeah. So then there's LBC's James O'Brien. Now, the amount of mental gymnastics this guy had to do today is hilarious. Just listen to this.
There'll be loads of people who are very supportive, or very delighted by today's judgment, who are as disgusted as all decent people are by an awful lot of what else Donald Trump is ushering in, and yet I don't know how you separate yourself from that, how you make it clear that you wish it was somebody else that had done this thing that you approve of, but as it is, it's the self-confessed sex offender who you're cheering for his attitude towards transgender women.
What? We can actually go live now to James O'Brien's planning meeting, I think. Oh, there we go. Right, OK, so UK Supreme Court thinks biological women are women. Trump thinks biological women are women. Trump is bad, so I'm just going to accuse him of being a sex offender to make it even worse. Therefore, if you support women, right, you support an alleged sex offender. You see, it all adds up. It all adds up, doesn't it? Unfortunately for James O'Brien, there are some actual sex offenders that he won't like to talk about. So, bit of an issue. Almost 2/3 of trans women prisoners are sex offenders. Now, I'm not saying that all trans women are bad, but I am just saying that almost 2/3 of trans women prisoners are sex offenders. So, sorry, James, maybe you can do a call-in on that. Oh, and then there's this guy.
With your support, we know that Good Law Project will be here to continue the fight. We are not optimistic. We are not pessimistic. We are determined.
Jolyon Maugham, the lawyer who clubbed a fox to death on Boxing Day wearing his wife's kimono, the lawyer who can't go on holiday because he keeps losing his case, he tweeted this: "I'm genuinely stunned. I spoke to loads of chambers with a deep specialism, and they said that for women, Scotland's position wasn't even arguable." Right, well, drink this one in, Jolyon.
Human rights, we won't let you forget. For women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet.
It's over. It's done. Women are women. Only biological women can be women. Only women should be allowed in women's spaces. Men shouldn't be able to go in there, no matter what kind of wig and a dress they want to wear that particular day. The hyper-woke, mental, far-left gender experiment is finished. It should never have gone to court. Gender matters, biology matters, sex matters, women matter. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got entrepreneur and podcast host Rob Moore, and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Well, Nina, in the spirit of this discussion, I think it's only right that I get to you first on this.
Thank you.
How do you feel about today's ruling, really, and what's led us up here?
My mother was a science teacher. She was a biology teacher. I'm a journalist. Facts mean everything to me. So you put those two together, and this is just pure common sense. It's pure biology. Women are women. Having said that, the one thing the judge said was that this should not be a matter for one side being triumphant over the other. It was a matter of clarification. And what I really worry about is the fact that there will be some kind of backlash against trans women. And the trouble is that you looked at the politicians tripping over their words. That was pure politics, because all those dates that you showed, Keir Starmer going blah, 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 and Rachel Reeves looking completely embarrassing. They were at a situation, it's pure politics, they were at a situation where they were trying to squash the left of the party, which they managed to do, while at the same time keeping things going.
They were also clearly afraid of going the same way as people like J.K. Rowling, who managed to survive because she got uncancelable levels of money, right? And didn't really seem to care because she believed in what she was standing up for. Mark, I rattled off quite a few politicians there, as you alluded to. I mean, do you think they need to apologise now? People lost their jobs over these views. People lost in some cases, their partners. People stopped talking to their kids over it. People lost friend groups. People lost money. You know, how do we make it up to those people?
I think it's very difficult, Patrick, because although I'm pleased about the decision, we should take some time to reflect on how mad this country is, that a court needed to reach this decision. I mean, what next? The Supreme Court's going to say, Galileo was right, the world is actually spherical, it's not flat, and then politicians will have to go along with it. Newton's law of gravity is true. Is that we're going to rely on a court to say this sort of stuff? So the politicians, in some ways, are not bound by this. If you're determined to believe that the world is flat, or that trans women are women rather than men, you can keep believing that. It is crazy it's taken a court to decide this. It's not obvious to me that Ed Davey, David Lammy or Rachel Reeves will change their opinions based on it any more than they would change their opinions on any other scientific matter because of a court ruling.
I do wonder if there's an irony that they actually didn't believe the guff they were saying to begin with. And
I think Nina's right.
They felt they had to say
They were walking a sort of thin line. They were determined not to offend anybody. But unfortunately, that meant that they were not willing to share the basic scientific truth with the British people. It is a victory for science over people who don't believe in science.
Yeah, Rob, your views on this. Is it a victory for common sense? Do you think it could go further? How do you feel?
I think it's a victory for common sense. I think it's good for sport because now we know what sex we're watching and we can choose quite easily in sport. I think it was ridiculous. I think it was very political. And hallelujah, now we can protect women properly. And I agree, it doesn't have to be a loss for the transgender community. There's solutions which you mentioned about having the third toilet. But finally, women can feel a bit safe. And hallelujah for people like J.K. Rowling, who will speak out and put her reputation and career really on the line. Just because she's uncancelable doesn't mean she's uncancelable.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It still affects her.
I think we should be
her a lot to speak common sense.
I think we should be a bit careful about this. I'm not totally sure it does change sports. I think individual sports can still run their own sporting codes. I'm not sure this judgment changes that.
I think it does. I think it does.
If a particular sport wants to, I mean, for example, horse racing, men and women compete together. So
that's different from boxing, isn't it?
It is different from boxing.
Well, not if you're
I don't think we have male versus female boxing anyway. It's not completely obvious to me that, say, the Olympic...
We do have male versus female. We did in the Olympics.
But it's not obvious to me the Olympic Committee is bound by this ruling.
Yeah.
It's a precedent, though, sure.
Well, I mean, it's a statement of biological science.
I think it will put a tin lid on that. I think it absolutely will do.
Certainly hope so.
No, because this is nuts. Because men are physically stronger than women. I mean, the testosterone actually gives men.
We would have recognised that before today, wouldn't you?
Well, absolutely. But of course, it's quite right.
Because what do you hope this what happens now? Because you're right. People were celebrating. 4 women in Scotland deserve a huge amount of credit. All of their associates deserve a huge amount of credit. But this needs to go further now. We need to get men out of women's sports, I think, do we? We need to get men out of women's changing rooms, all of that stuff.
Certainly out of women's changing rooms. Now, at the same time as I say this, I have a friend who transitioned 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and she, you would never, the idea of women's changing rooms being assaulted by a predatory man in a frock is so far removed from this friend of mine. And so there are cases, there are genuine people who have transitioned, who should be regarded in the way they choose to be regarded.
She should be allowed into the women's changing rooms?
Yes.
Really? How are we going to make that decision?
This is the problem. The point being that what women fear is not a woman who has transitioned surgically. They fear a man who has not transitioned surgery in a dress, because what they fear is the penis as a weapon. Let's be honest about it. Yeah. So how do we? So how do we judge this? How do we judge this?
We have a very simple rule: if you're biologically male, you're not allowed into the female bathroom.
Well, then by the same rule.
I promise I wouldn't be predatory if I walked into a women's changing room, but I don't think that means I should be allowed in.
No, but then that means that trans men should be allowed into a female changing room who look like a man, beard.
That's right. Biological sex is the determinant.
Yes. So I don't particularly want a trans man in the same loo as me.
I'll just go, Rob. Do you think that maybe this is a signal that we're past peak woke? Do you think, or do you think this is a bit of a sticking plaster?
It does feel like a moment. Yeah, it does. victory for common sense and victory for logic and reality. It does feel like a watershed moment, actually. I think so.
Can I ask you guys, do you object to men transitioning at all?
That's not even the question.
No, that's the question I'm asking.
No.
So are they allowed to exist as human beings and to go about their lives?
Yes. Nobody's doubting that.
But then how do we cater for them? Because if we're talking about the simple thing about going into a ladies' loo, should there be 3 different loos? Male, female, male, female, non-binary?
Basically, yes, I think. Because
not even male thing. I mean, this alters all the time. For example, on an aeroplane, they're not even split between men and women, right? So I think that's up to the person providing them. You might have female and general, and anyone can walk into the general one. But you might have a female-only space, and then the other one is, anyone who wants to, including
fair
women.
enough.
So I don't think it's that difficult to work out, but you do need some basic ground rules.
Absolutely.
And I think we've now got those basic ground rules that we are going to segregate men and women biologically.
It's also not a human right to be able to compete in elite level sport. I would have loved to have been a footballer or a cricketer. I wasn't good enough, right? So I didn't have the right to then go on and compete at that level. If I had identified as a woman, 100%, I would have played at an incredibly high level in cricket in a women's team, right? But it's not a human right to be able to do that. So you can't just do it. So I think maybe some people need to think, all right, well, they might lose out on playing sport at the level that they want to play at, but if it's for the sake of women's safety and also for fairness, then I think that's something that you have to decide to do, really, I'm afraid. It's the way it is. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see what happens. There is something I think is going to loom large, probably in the coming weeks and months, which is that J.K. Rowling actually tweeted this, which is that loads of HR books are currently being pulped, right, because of this ruling. And I wonder if there's going to be a lot of retrospective payouts for people who were dismissed because of their, turf views or whatever. We'll have to wait and see on that. But
a ton of litigation is going to come in.
Yeah.
A ton of litigation is going to happen after this ruling.
Yeah, good. Well, good. It'd be nice to see it go that way for a change, wouldn't it? But